Tonight, from a tent to a shelter and back again, homeless people in St. John's say conditions inside a for-profit shelter are unfit.
Another tent encampment has sprung up here behind Colonial Building as concerns continue about the lack of affordable housing in the city. I'm Ryan Cook, and I'll have that story coming up.
The educational consultant singled out this week for his work at Memorial University's UK campus has been identified, and now he's fighting to restore his reputation. I'm Terry Roberts. I'll have that story coming up.
Some med school students from Memorial University are running up Signal Hill every single day in October to raise money. They invited me to tag along, and I'm going to tell you, it's not easy.
Well, it's easy to say that people of Corner Brook love Halloween. There is a lineup that wraps right down around this huge building, waiting to get inside the haunted house.
It's an out-of-body experience. There's a lot of lights, there's a lot of smoke, there's a lot of jump scares.
My favorite part was probably when they're like chasing you and like trying to grab you and stuff.
I'll take you in there. That's tonight.
This is CBC Here and Now.
Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. A housing protest in St. John's took an ugly turn today. For weeks, homeless people have been camped out across from Confederation Building. Some expected to be sleeping indoors tonight, but as Here and Now's Ryan Cook reports, they say they'd be better off outside.
Karen Peddle has stayed in a shelter on Larkhall Street for the past 2 nights. She says conditions are deplorable. Rat feces, dirty floors, sharps boxes full of needles. She says it's not what she signed up for when she agreed to leave her tent outside Confederation Building.
I'll go back into my tent with my cat because, I'm not going to no other shelter. This is why I didn't want to go in shelter. This is why I was in a tent in the first place.
Some of the tent protesters have struck deals to move into permanent housing units. Others reluctantly agreed to move into the very shelter system they were protesting to begin with. They've been placed in for-profit shelters belonging to Leonard Fair and Barb Peddle, whose units have drawn complaints from clients for years. The police arrived at the Larkhall shelter today just minutes after the media showed up. They asked to speak with Karen Peddle in private. She says they were called after she refused to transfer to another one of Fair and Peddle's shelters until she could speak with the housing officer.
Get my family back together is the most thing. Get a unit. Get my home back. I want to go home, right? I don't want to be shifting places and wondering every time I move, I lose things. So lesser and lesser things I got.
NDP leader Jim Dinn watched everything unfold this morning. With all the talk of houses versus housing options, he says this is neither.
Housing, stable housing with supports for those who need it, there's the answer. But when I think of an emergency shelter, it's an emergency. Week, 2 weeks, maybe a month. But once it becomes permanent, then there's a problem. It's default.
If Karen Peddle chooses to go back to a tent, she'll have options. Another encampment has sprung up here behind Colonial Building, closer to services and bathrooms, but no closer to a permanent solution. Ryan Cook, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, still with that story, Minister Paul Pike was asked today about the conditions inside that for-profit shelter during question period. He says that no one from the tent encampment is staying there.
Inspections on the private shelters have been completed, and the expectations have been clearly articulated to the owner of these shelters. As a matter of fact, we don't have anybody from the tent encampment staying there anymore.
Now, the housing minister went on to refer those protesters to Safe Haven on St. Clair Avenue in St. John's. That not-for-profit shelter opened several weeks ago and offers wraparound services. In other news, the province is about to go live with virtual physician coverage. We now know that a private American company is being contracted to provide the service, but there are still many questions about how it will all work. Here Now's Mark Quinn reports.
The proponent has been chosen.
Health Minister Tom Osborne isn't ready to name the private company that's won the contract, but CBC News has learned that it's called Teladoc, a U.S. company with operations in Canada. Osborne says the company has guaranteed access to virtual physicians, doctors who will be paid by the provincial health system with no out-of-pocket cost to users.
I will confirm that we have required that they be members of the NLMA as well as members of the College of Physicians and Surgeons of Newfoundland and Labrador.
He says the company will provide two types of services, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. primary care for residents registered with Patient Connect and 24/7 virtual emergency department care with a nurse practitioner on the ground. Osborne expects both these services will be available by the end of November, with New West Valley being the first community to receive the 24/7 coverage. It's not clear where the physicians themselves will be based, but Osborne says it's possible that some of them could be doctors who are already working in Newfoundland and Labrador.
It's up to the proponent who they hire, but I don't see why they wouldn't be able to.
Opposition PC leader Tony Wakeham has questions.
We know all the challenges we've had with travel nurses and the extreme costs we're incurring because of that, and now we're going to go the same route. Is it because we just haven't done a real good job of retention?
Right now, health officials aren't saying how much the virtual care contract will cost the province, but Wakeham expects will pay dearly.
We all know that we will pay a premium for those doctors because now we're going to have the doctors in the same situation as the nurses. We've seen full-time nurses give up their full-time jobs to become travel nurses. Are we going to see the same thing happen now with our physicians who are currently seeing patients?
Osborne says this type of virtual care is not a temporary solution. And at a Board of Trade lunch yesterday, the Premier said there's no going back to the way the province's healthcare system used to operate.
If anybody stands on this stage and promises that everybody is going to have a family doctor in the next year or two or three, I would encourage you all to laugh them out of here.
Osborne said more details about virtual care coverage in this province are expected in the weeks to come. Mark Quinn, CBC News, St. John's.
The Citizens Representative says children and adults with complex needs are falling through the cracks. And he's heard it firsthand from families who say they're hanging on by a thread. Here now's Peter Cowan explains.
Right from early childhood up until she passed away in 2020, Minxie Tuttle needed a lot of support.
She was severely disabled, medically fragile, so her large complaints were severe cerebral palsy and chronic lung disease. During her life, she had about 30 hospital admissions, most of them for respiratory distress and failure, unexpected admissions at the Janeway Hospital. So we spent a lot of time there.
The family also spent a lot of time caring for her. She needed to be fed every 4 hours, and then there was all the paperwork to justify government supports. Amy Richards, Minxie's mom, helped put together this new report from the Citizens Representative. Among the recommendations, make respite workers more available to give caregivers a break.
One family spending $35,000 a year for respite. They can't afford that. They have to pay it, but they just can't afford it. So the respite piece, I think, is big. Having a sort of a more universal approach to having someone be able to come into your house regardless of where you are in the social strata is important.
Susan Green gave her input as well. Her 13-year-old granddaughter requires a lot of care. Not easy for the girl's mother, who has 3 other children.
She's physically disabled. She's mentally challenged. She's tube fed. She's seizures. So she has to be fed every 3.5 hours. And so it takes almost 24-hour care to meet her needs.
There's a call for more community programs to offer support and socialization. Right now, the wait lists can extend for decades. The report is also asking for a Caregiver Recognition Act to deal with a looming problem. Aging parents are soon going to struggle to keep caring for their adult children.
It's extremely frightening to think that there will be a time when she has absolutely no advocate, no one to speak for her, or really to look after her needs. And so I think for any parent, that is extremely frightening.
The health minister is looking over the report and promises that help is coming soon.
We recognize the challenge that families of individuals with complex needs have, and we want to try to make life a little easier for those families.
According to the minister, there's already a committee inside government that will come up with solutions. Those are expected sometime in the next year. Peter Cowan, CBC News, St. John's.
More fallout tonight from the Auditor General's probe into spending at Memorial University. The consultant at the center of a questionable contract linked to MUN's Harlow campus in the United Kingdom is fighting back against any suggestion he did anything wrong. Here Now's Terry Roberts reports.
His name is William Lawton, a graduate of Memorial University, describes himself as a higher education consultant based in London. He's the man linked to this notable paragraph in the Auditor General's probe of Memorial University. It says the university paid $65,000 in fees to a consultant that did not submit a final report, as was required in their contract. At the time he signed the contract in early 2019, Lawton was also a volunteer member of the Harlow Campus Board of Directors, and that there was no disclosure of this to the university's Conflict of Interest Committee. This is how the university president addressed the matter on Monday.
That consultant no longer works for the university. When that type of event has been identified, changes are brought in.
After identifying him as the consultant in question, I was able to make contact with William Lawton in London. He would not do a recorded interview, but he called this whole affair an inaccurate travesty that has left him feeling distressed. Lawton was hired as an academic consultant to implement a new development strategy for Harlow, which has offered study abroad options for Memorial University students for more than half a century. He was to be paid $600 per day, with expectations of working 2 days a week. Lawton said his contract never required that he submit a final report, and he shared his contract with CBC News to support his claim. The university also confirmed today that a final report was not a requirement. And Lawton says there was a legal opinion from university lawyers that found he was not in a conflict of interest. I accepted the academic director consultancy when I was 5 years into my board member role because I wanted to make a difference to Harlow, to Memorial, and to the province. We were all assured that there was no conflict of interest. Lawton says he reported regularly, both orally and in writing, about his activities to the Harlow Board of Directors, and his invoices to Memorial included a detailed list of his work. Lawton says the implication that he did not honor his contract is hurtful. He says he was able to make inroads in England for some Newfoundland and Labrador companies, which also helped the university's business school. He admitted to falling short, however, on his efforts to redesign the curriculum at Harlow. He said the pandemic made his work especially challenging. Lawton says he plans to raise his concerns in a letter to the Auditor General. Other than that, his connection to Memorial University has been severed. In January, he resigned as both a board member with the Harlow campus and as the campus's academic consultant. Terry Roberts, CBC News, St. John's.
Heather in for Ashley today, and they say the early bird gets the worm, and this was the worm for so many people. Early this morning, my social feed's full of beautiful sunrises. This one's called A Middle Cove Morning and comes to us courtesy of Shannon Reardon. Now, tonight will you see a wonderful sunset? Bit cloudy tonight, so probably not, and it's looking like we've got some rain moving in, some showers in parts of the west coast right now, and even some wet roads through central Newfoundland. Currently temperatures 9, 10, 11 degrees for southern parts of the island, 7, 8 anywhere along the north coast, and in Labrador all down into the single digits from 9 degrees to 4. Now, what do we have on the rain? As I was just talking about, we've got some rain on the way tonight for the island, moving from west to east. That rain will end in the overnight for some areas, then it'll be cloudy tomorrow, and then on Thursday we've got some showers. So we'll talk about all that a little later in the show.
Thanks, Heather. Well, more people in Newfoundland and Labrador are using food banks. According to new data, visits are up 12% this year, with more than 15,000 visits made to food banks in March alone. That works out to almost 25,000 meals and snacks. This data comes from a new report from Food Banks Canada. 62 food banks in this province took part in the study. Well, when it comes to the weekly grocery run, prices seem to be going in just one direction, and that is up. The CBC's Jessica Singer compared costs for everyday items at stores like Dominion, Sobeys, and Walmart. And here's what she found.
We all do it. You have to. No choice. Grocery shopping. It's not what it used to be. It's expensive. And we're going to try to figure out, does it really matter where you shop for the basics? We'll go to 3 stores, Sobeys, Walmart, and Dominion. And we'll buy these items: chicken, milk, canola oil, toothpaste, tea, white bread, and apples. We're not bargain hunting here. I don't have coupons, and I just want to get these items fast and go home. We're trying to buy the same brands in 3 different stores. So comparing apples to apples. Let's go. No Wonder Bread. Womp womp. Just got Ben's white bread. Colgate. All right, let's see what we got. This is what we got. Now look, there are small differences in what we got. For instance, Sobeys didn't have Wonder Bread, and there are small disparities in the size of the canola oils. But overall, the cheapest store? Walmart. Let's talk about toothpaste. Same brand, same size, nothing on sale. Sobeys and Dominion, 1.5 times more expensive. Now let's talk about milk. Same size, same brand, nothing on sale. 31 cents cheaper at Walmart. Overall, Walmart's bill was about $7 to $8 cheaper than Sobeys and Dominion. Cheaper, yes. But all this stuff, it's way more expensive than it used to be, and not that long ago. Good. 5.0.
Well, a Memorial University School of Medicine student is getting a little help from her classmates. Caitlin Jarvis has spent years recovering from a stroke she suffered in 2020. And because her insurance doesn't cover private physiotherapy in Ontario, her fellow students have stepped up in a big way. Jeremy Eaton has this story.
For the past 4 years, second-year students at Memorial University School of Medicine have been taking part in a unique fundraiser. It's called Hills for Humanity, and that's where students run, walk, or hike up Signal Hill every single day in October to raise money. Now, normally they do it for a group or an organization, but this year they're doing it for an individual. Now, this is something that you might not have known about, so let me tell you. All right, let's do it.
It's definitely challenging as the month goes on, but it's motivating to have a fundraising goal and to kind of be sharing this fundraiser. So we know that we gotta stick to the plan. So it's going to Caitlin's therapy fund. Caitlin she was a med student in her first year, and she experienced a stroke. But now she's pursuing a physiotherapy program, and so the funds we raise are going to go support her in her recovery from her stroke.
When I woke up from the coma, I couldn't do anything. I couldn't talk. I had to communicate by just blinking or moving my eyebrows for yes or no. Couldn't move at all. So I couldn't eat, I couldn't swallow, I couldn't drink, I couldn't breathe on my own. I had tracheotomy. They have a device, it's called Kyogo. It's an exoskeleton designed to help you walk, essentially. The only place in Canada that it's offered is a physiotherapy clinic in Ontario. So I'll be going there in 3 weeks' time.
Put out a call for recommendations for different causes in the community that we could support this year, and one of her classmates, when she first started, suggested her therapy fund. So then we put it to a vote and she won by landslide, so we're really, really excited to be able to support her this year.
Honored and blown away. Like I said, I don't know them personally, but I definitely felt like they had my back.
While Halloween is still about a week away, fans of the spooky season in Corner Brook are already celebrating. A team of Halloween lovers there turned a 2-story industrial building into a house of horrors. And people lined up for hours to get scared inside. Here Now's Colleen Connors braved the experience.
Shrill cries and screams. They're waiting around every corner at the House of Horrors on Main Street. It offers 21 different scary scenes to walk through, if you dare.
It's an out-of-body experience. There's a lot of lights, there's a lot of smoke, there's a lot of jump scares, there's a lot of scenes to go through. It's just a whole sensory overload.
This is what nightmares are made of. People came from all over the West Coast for the experience, willing to line up for hours.
So my favorite part was probably when they were like chasing you and like trying to grab you and stuff. It was really fun.
I like that they like jump out at you a lot.
Screams so loud you can hear them up the street. It takes dozens of Halloween lovers to pull this off, and lots of time. Lawrence and her team of volunteers started in August.
It's pretty dark, especially upstairs. There's a lot of like dark mazes and stuff to go through. It's a little more creepier. You come downstairs, there's a lot of jump scares and stuff. But yeah, it's pretty cool.
It's about more than just scares. All money collected goes to a local charity. In 3 years, the haunted house has raised nearly $40,000. People in Corner Brook certainly like to get spooked. This event will go on for several nights during the week, with all the money going to the Kids Eat Smart program. And organizers tell me it'll definitely be back again to scare everybody next year. Colleen Connors, CBC News, Corner Brook.
We have groups of kids coming out and saying, hey, can we be zombies tonight?
Yes, they can. From a haunted house in Corner Brook to a haunted forest in Conception Harbor, we'll take you to the Halloween Harbor Haunt. And it's for a good cause. That's coming up.
Nothing super scary in the forecast, just a little bit of rain. We'll talk about all that coming up next.
Well, before we get to the weather, just check out this massive French vessel anchored in St. John's Harbor.
It's a science ship, and it's also able to track missiles. Now, it has several satellite dishes, as you can see right here, and a helicopter pad. We also heard that one of the French schools in the city even got a tour of the ship.
Oh, I bet that was fun. And while you won't be allowed on board, you can take a drive downtown to see it, but you'll have to be fast. The ship will be setting sail tomorrow. That is quite the impressive vessel. And I guess, Heather, if someone is interested in heading downtown tonight to have a look at it, what's the weather like?
Well, it's dry right now here on the East Coast, but we're gonna have some rain moving in. But that won't be here in St. John's until likely after midnight. So if you do want to go for a drive this evening, you should be able to see that ship unobstructed from the raindrops. However, there's already a few raindrops falling on the west coast in some places and some dry or wet pavement through central Newfoundland. And we're going to see this rain right here that you see on the future tracker push right across the island as we head towards midnight. And then it'll start to end for the west coast and central first, and then by tomorrow morning we'll still have some showers sticking around here in the east. What we'll see for Labrador is some precipitation moving across there as well. Let's take a look at our rainfall amounts, the projections right now, just seeing a trace, but as we head towards morning, we could see as much as 10 to 15 millimeters for parts of the west coast and through central, about 5 to 10 pretty well everywhere else, and 5 millimeters tonight for St. John's and the northern Avalon. Taking a look at our temperatures tonight, pretty well with our winds. They're going to be southwesterly for the island, 20 gusting to 40. For St. John's, showers and 8 degrees. A little bit cooler by a couple of degrees there through central Newfoundland, but a touch warmer for the south coast. 10 for the Burin Peninsula, 9 for the southwest coast and into the west coast, dropping back a little bit as we move to St. Anthony and the Straits a little further north, getting cooler again, and even dropping into the minus digit range here for Nain and Labrador City, Wabush area. Now, if you're in Lab West tonight, with the wind chill, it could be as cool as minus 10 for you. So it's really starting to get chilly. And through Happy Valley, Goose Bay, you could see a chance of a flurry or a shower. So it could be either or for you folks. Taking a look at this. Now, this is the fog that we could see tonight. It's going to move across the province and it'll burn off tomorrow. So you could see some fog in addition to some of that rain. Taking a look at our future tracker now. By morning, we'll still have some showers sticking around here for the west coast. We'll really be seeing them for the Bonavista Peninsula, the Burin Peninsula, and the Avalon Peninsula. We could have a shower or a flurry for parts of Labrador as well. This will move off with a few showers, a scattered shower sticking around for the west coast and some cloudy skies there as well. Now, taking a closer look at tomorrow, the showers will depart, but they'll depart the Avalon Peninsula last. So we'll see some showers tomorrow in St. John's at 12 degrees and some as well for the southern Avalon. You could see another 2 millimeters for the Fairyland area and 5 millimeters for Placentia area. For Marystown, you could see a shower there as well at 13 degrees, just a degree warmer there. As we move into central Newfoundland, Cadaver Peninsula could also see a shower tomorrow after that rain departs. Cloudy skies, a chance of a shower. Same thing through central, 10, 11 degrees. Going west now, 13 for Burgeo, mixed sun and cloud, chance of a shower, mostly cloudy for Port aux Basques, and we could pick up a shower there on the west coast as well, 9, 10 degrees for you folks. As we move on up to the northern peninsula, between 6, 7, 8, 9 for southern Labrador and the northern peninsula tomorrow, could see a chance of showers there as well for the most part, but it's a chance. Into the rest of Labrador now, on the coast, 4 degrees between Nain and Makkovik, where you could also see a chance of showers. Your winds will be from the northwest, 20 to 40. Happy Valley, Goose Bay, 7 degrees chillier for Labrador West and Churchill Falls. Now we will take a look at your long range forecast a little later in the show, and we might talk a little bit about some snow.
The spirit of Halloween is very much alive in Conception Harbor. They have gone all out for a new spectacular fundraiser.
The lights and everything is up and there's so much like fog everywhere. It's like so spooky. Lots of screams. It's great.
We'll tell you all about it coming up. Well, Halloween is right around the corner, and here in Conception Harbor, a group of volunteers is giving new meaning to the idea of community spirit. They've taken a patch of forest and turned it into a haunted hike of spooky horrors. And joining me now is the organizer of the Halloween Harbor Haunt, Chris Orchard. So this is quite the setup here. Can you explain what this event is?
The main mission of the event for this particular one for Halloween is just to give a journey through a forest of many different scenes and actors, all kinds of scare tactics for all ages. So when we know there's children, we try to dial it down a little bit so they, don't have dreams for 10 years. And create the unexpected that you didn't see in Newfoundland. I'm from Ontario, obviously, and we've worked many organizations and charities with these scare tactics and these different sceneries with the help of many volunteers of this town. And it's always unexpected walking around a corner. Not necessarily someone's going to jump out and scare you. The nice thing about partnering up as a benefactor with St. Anne's and Perchance is that's a theater company that has brought many volunteer actors, and they put their own twist on their scenes, and it's just created an amazing evening for all ages. And yes, you will hear many people screaming.
I am hiding in, there's like a cocoon, and I get to crawl out and then get pulled back in and scream. It's going to be great.
What kind of reaction do you get from people?
I actually haven't done that yet because I was playing the hag last night, which was really fun because they were just kind of leaning away from me.
Can you describe to me what it's like here when the sun sets and the show starts? What does it look like?
The lights and everything is up, and there's so much like fog everywhere, and there's people with hoods, and you can't really see anybody's face at that point, and it's really fun. It's like so spooky. And lots of screams because there's 2 jump scares. Lots of screams. It's great.
This is a really large footprint, a lot of different things happening here. Tell us about the scale of this project.
Oh, it's massive because, 8-9 weeks ago, this was a raw forest. There were no paths, there was nothing. And after tons of gravel and cutting with loppers and chainsaws and volunteers, we've got the paths, and then the lighting came, and then all of these creations just keep coming. And every night the actors come, and we have all kinds of kids coming from the local schools who love to come out and jump out at you and scare you as you walk along. So you never see the same show 2 times in a row.
A lot of volunteers, like upwards of 90, Chris mentioned. Why do you think so many people want to take part?
In talking to people as they leave the park, there's never been anything like this. And there's not a lot for kids in school of this age, basically in their backyard. They can walk down, they can become zombies, they can become anything they want and walk around in the park.
You're helping charities, where people might be in need to, with St. Anne's, different structure issues and keeping the history alive. Our biggest motto is preserving the history of the people of Conception Harbour, and that historical building is from the dawn of time, basically. And Perchance being the new company, we want to make sure that they're thoroughly welcomed and that they survive many years like the church has.
Talking about the sustainability of the church as a structure, as a building. Think about like repairing the shingles, the sidings, and then putting oil, sustaining the light, like paying for light bills and things like that. So that's where we're going to channel this money. You've seen how the place is lit up, and then it brings life to the people. It brings life to the community. So it reawakens our community.
The neat thing is we have some permanent things in place in our next stage for the property, because it goes quite a ways further. So hopefully within a year or 2, we more than triple the size of the park, and it will operate in the summer and the fall. We have a Christmas show coming up. All in all, everyone's been so supportive, and we just want everyone to be able to come out and enjoy a great night. And there's concessions. We have an amazing wood fire pizza oven that's local as well. So it's just helping other small businesses all around, and that's my main mission. People get out and do stuff, and it helps all kinds of charities, because every show we do, there'll be 5 to 7 different themed ones, and all the money goes to a directive of St. Anne's and other charities through the communities to help people.
Well, if you're interested in taking a dart out to Conception Harbour to check out the Halloween Harbour Haunt, there are 3 performances left. There's a performance tomorrow night, Friday, and Saturday, and the show runs from 6 to 10 p.m. and it's located just behind St. Anne's Church on Corporal Jamie Murphy Memorial Drive. The inquiry into the treatment of Innu children in care resumed today in Shahijit. Jarvis Panashaway opened up with his own story of childhood abuse at the hands of a local priest. He says there was no support for victims back then, that the memories are fresh in his mind. Now, before we share some of his testimony, a warning: some may find Panashaway's account difficult to hear.
We were vulnerable. My parents were alcoholics. And the priest knew that he took advantage of my parents. Sometimes we would hide in the woods when the darkness came, because we were afraid to go to his place. I remember when I was a kid, we would hide behind my parents' house. It was dark, and there was a vehicle going to my parents' house, and it was the priest. Then we seen him leave, the vehicle leave. Then we went into my house, our house, my parents' house. Then my parents said, the priest was just here, he's concerned of you guys. We didn't know how to tell my mom or dad. Eventually, we were at the playground, I remember quite well. It was dark. Now this time, he wasn't using his vehicle. He was walking by foot. He grabbed us. He dragged us to his place. We were ashamed because we were seen by our friends. We couldn't see anything. We were ashamed. It just feels like it's yesterday. Trapped. Because there is nowhere to turn to. There was no social service back then, no social worker or there's nothing to look forward to.
A First Nation in southern Alberta is bringing back an idea that dates back over a century. The hope is that it will help them cope with climate change on the prairies. Stephanie Cram has the story.
People from Siksika Nation in southern Alberta say it's getting windier.
Living in a valley, you can get those extreme winds, especially when it's coming down a hill. And we have a lot of roads that are going up hills and down hills.
They're seeing the impact of climate change on the landscape.
It never used to get this windy. And a few years ago, we had a windstorm that took the rooftops off some houses on the east end.
Now the community is turning to a century-old farming practice to combat this new challenge. Soon, this bare prairie landscape will include rows of trees, otherwise known as shelter belts. The plants serve as natural wind barriers, shielding homes, livestock, and people from bitter prairie winds. Shelter belts aren't new to Alberta. In 1903, the federal government launched a national shelter belt program as part of its bid to attract farmers to the prairies.
A landowner can just ask for some free trees and they would come back and plant them, and they would really increase that kind of land cover.
Over 1 billion seedlings were handed out before the program ended in 2013. Even though the program didn't explicitly exclude First Nations, a technicality prevented farmers living on reserve from receiving free trees.
Because they didn't own it the same way, you couldn't say, this is my township and range and my address, please send the trees to this area, and then you'd go to town and pick them up and plant them on your land.
Now, more than 100 years after the program started, that's something that Siksika is changing. The First Nation is planting rows and rows of trees with the help of Edmonton-based nonprofit Project Forest. Together, they decided on 14 species of trees that will survive the area's conditions. Right now, they're small, but in about 10 years, they could look as big as the shelter belts at the University of Saskatchewan School of Agriculture.
This is a nice long shelter belt, double rows of Siberian elm, a tree species that they brought from Europe that came over and fit well into this prairie climate.
And match the increasingly hot and dry conditions climate change is bringing to the prairies. In addition to blocking wind, they trap snowdrift, hydrating soil during the spring melt when crops are beginning to sprout.
It's the drier weather that we're seeing too in the summer and the spring, you know, the early melt off, the less rain, it's impacting our grounds.
Once the trees are planted, Siksika plans to incorporate edible plants like Saskatoon berries, raspberries, and medicinal plants that have disappeared from the area.
Our relationship with all living beings is as equals. So to see them coming back, it's like they're coming back home, is what one elder said. He said in Blackfoot, they're coming back home.
Stephanie Cram, CBC News, Siksika Nation.
Thousands of people follow Steve and Lisa McBride on Facebook. The homesteaders live on the southern shore with their goats, their bees, their bunnies, and share what they've learned about farming and making their own food. Here they are telling the Signal's Adam Walsh about what it takes to make mozzarella.
And I mean, that's how I'll store it now too. I'll store it in a bit of a salt brine. But yes, fresh mozzarella, just stretched out. It's a lot of fun to make. You throw it up in the air.
All right. How do you? I was curious. It was sometime after we went to Italy there the other year, and I was like, "Gosh, that looks really interesting." So I've watched a video or two on YouTube, but tell folks how, like, if you want to make mozzarella, and if you're using goat's cheese, like how do you, or using goat's milk, sorry, how do you kind of do that?
Well, basically, you're curdling the milk, and to anyone that's going to make mozzarella cheese, it's an easy cheese. It's a good beginner cheese, but if you just Google it and you look online, recipes will tell you, oh, you don't know what you're doing? Use citric acid. Use lemon juice to curdle. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. I tried that. It sets you back. It kind of teaches you it takes you down the wrong road, I think. Cheese cultures are really easy. You can buy a package of cheese culture and you can keep it in your fridge. I'm going through a package. I bought a big package because we make a lot of cheese. And I've been using the same culture package for 3 years now, making cheese every other week. You use like 1/8 of a teaspoon. Basically, you take the milk, you add the culture into it, you wait a couple hours, and then you make the cheese. You warm it up. It separates into the two different layers, the curds and whey, which was a staple breakfast back in the 1800s and before. People would basically just take the fresh milk from the cow or the goat. They'd add the culture into it. It would thicken, and you would eat it, and it would be your breakfast, basically. It would be like eating a glass of milk with a spoon.
What I really love about making mozzarella is you stretch it when it's hot. So your hands are like burning, but you're pulling this cheese across the room. And Steve's on one side of the house and I'm on the other. And we're going to see how long you can stretch out that mozzarella for. And
and then basically with the mozzarella cheese, you leave it warm for a while. And, you can find all the directions online or in a cheese making book. But the difference between cheese is kind of that stage. After you curdle it and after it's sitting there in this big, thick, kind of yogurty soup, you basically just either you cook it or you leave it or you come back to it tomorrow. And with mozzarella cheese, you basically just warm it. And then once it's acidified enough and it's warmed up, then you can actually stretch it and stretch it out. It's like Lisa was saying there, you can stretch out a ball of mozzarella so it's 10 feet long, and it's fun.
That was interesting.
That looks really good. I know I'm hungry.
I know, it looks like a really fun Sunday activity to make your own mozzarella. I bet it is delicious.
That looked really delicious.
Yeah. And we're listening, but we were also spending some time trying to figure out what that nursery rhyme was, that curds and whey, Miss Muffet. Is that our Tuffet?
Yeah. Anyway, I forgot all about that nursery rhyme.
Curds and whey.
Oh, funny. All right, some white stuff possibly in store for Northern Labrador on Saturday.
All right.
So we're getting there. Yeah, it's possible. Don't have amounts or anything yet. I'll keep talking to Environment Canada, and if there's any significant accumulation, they say they'll put out a watch or a warning or something like that. But not until Friday, not until 24 hours before. So still lots of time to watch that. But going into this weekend, we could see some more showers, including what's on the way now. So let's take a look. So we see some Thursday evening, we see some cloud over the island, Northern Labrador, some fairly clear skies with some clouds in Lab West. And as we move on towards Friday in the overnight and through Friday morning, what we'll see is this area of precipitation move towards the island, and that's what's going to bring showers for Saturday. But on Friday, what we'll see is the island will be cloudy for the most part, with a chance of showers. We will see possibly a few showers on the southwest coast, maybe on the west coast from 8 to 10 degrees there on the west and southwest coasts. On the east side of things in St. John's, 9 degrees, cooler through central, 6-7 degrees, and cooler yet again for the northern peninsula at 4. Into Labrador along the coast, it looks like you'll see a mix of sun and cloud between 2 and Nain, 4 for Cartwright, and for Central and Western Labrador, 2 to 4 degrees as well. Could see a flurry for Lab West. Moving on to Saturday now, we'll see this here push across and bring some showers and possibly that snow up here to the northern area of Labrador. Saturday, we'll see the showers for the island pretty well everywhere. Warmer temperatures though, 11 in St. John's, 12, 13 for the south coast, as warm as 14 for the west coast, dropping back a little bit for the northern peninsula and into the straits, and into the single digits for Labrador, where we could see rain or a snow flurry for Lab West and for Nain here as well. Could see some showers south of that with your temperatures between 5, 6, 7 degrees from central Labrador out to the coast there. As we take a look at our 5-day now, we do see a fair amount of gray skies for Thursday, Friday, Saturday. You could see the sun on Sunday. Nice warm day there, dropping back with a chance of showers on Monday into central Newfoundland, looking similar there, where you could see a decent day on Saturday through central, and for the west coast as well. Sunday looks like your day, 4 degrees there. Moving on up to the Big Land. Thursday for Western Labrador, looking dry, some flurries on Friday. Could be either or on Saturday. Sunday looking great, but cool for you. Similar for Eastern Labrador, Sunday and Monday looking like nice days for you folks. And I said you probably wouldn't see like a great sunset tonight, but here's one from last night. And this comes to us from Sandra Taylor. And it is a beautiful sea scene and a sunset. And if you've got photos, you can send them right here, nlphotos@cbc.ca.
Oh, that is beautiful. Thank you very much for that, Sandra. Great shot. Well, that's it for us. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good night.